Welcome back to the show. Well, we're going to have an extended discussion about the press briefing yesterday at the Flagstaff House to mark the president's first year in office. This morning, I've been joined by Perry Ofosu. He's the vice president of the IPR and registrar of GIJ. And also, I'm sure you know him, Alhaji Bature Idrisu. He's the managing editor of the Al-Hajj newspaper. I'm sure you've heard him countless times on radio. So that's Alhaji Bature. Good to see both of you. Happy New Year.
Good to see you.
Okay, Alhaji, I'll start with you. You were there yesterday. Yeah. Were you impressed with the kind of answers the president gave to the questions that were asked?
Well, I was impressed. I was impressed because not only the quality of the answers that he provided, but also the fact that he single-handedly took the questions by himself without the benefit of his ministers coming to aid him. And the fact also that he presented us with facts and figures to some of the... And he proved, the president did prove that he was actually on top of his job. Because whether it is issue concerning the Western region, Upper East, or whatever, he was able to give us a proper description of what pertains. And I think I was impressed. Of course, there were certain areas that I thought that I wasn't quite clear with some of the response.
Like which areas?
It can be understood. For example, there was somebody asked about the bonuses being paid to cocoa farmers, and I thought that is a very, very important question that the president should have provided answers so that at least calm the nerves of the farmers, because we've been paying cocoa farmers bonuses almost every year, given the fact that cocoa has been the mainstay of this economy until gold came to overtake it. So I thought that this is a very important question that the minister should have apprised the president of some of these things, because it should be expected that issue of cocoa would definitely come up as a function. But it looks as if the ministers didn't brief the president on the issue, and he was found wanting on that occasion. I also asked one particular question, and the president's answer was not clear to me.
I was going to come to your question.
Yes, because I thought that the constitution was very, very clear that whenever the president is outside jurisdiction, outside the country, or is unable to perform his functions as a president, he needs to hand over to his vice president. And the vice president will then act as president. It means that he is then clothed with all the powers of the executive. So that if we have the vice president acting as president, and then the president who is outside jurisdiction also speaks to the nation on occasion of the New Year Day, for example, that presupposes that we are having two presidents running concurrently, which I think is an affront to the Constitution. Even though he claimed that as far as he knows, his predecessors have all been doing this statutory function, and he thought that he has not committed any blunder. I think that his legal advisors will have to look at that, because there is totally breach there. And this isn't the first time. I remember that when the president was far away in the US to give a lecture recently, and Mandela died, we were told that the president represented Ghana at that funeral, which I thought was also problematic, because the president did inform Parliament that he was visiting the United States and he would stay for this number of days. Now, I'm not aware that the president asked permission from the Parliament to travel to South Africa. So clearly there was a breach there, and I was just imagining, of course I know there would have been contact between the president and his vice president, who was then acting. But assuming that car rollings type of incident, you can just imagine.
So you think that your question was not properly addressed by the president?
One of my questions was adequately addressed, which was the periodic broadcast. He had promised Parliament last year that there would be periodic broadcast. And we also what the situation this country found itself in due to the election petition, and it wasn't necessary. And he has promised that this year he will ensure that it happens at least quarterly.
Okay. Let me come to you, Perry. You monitored, or were you there?
Yeah. I wasn't there, I monitored.
You monitored. What did you make of the whole session? that lasted for 2 hours?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm coming from a background of public relations, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the roles of government is to try and meet the expectations of the citizens. Now, in doing that, the citizens would want to be informed periodically about some of the things that they expect to see or hear. And I think that the event was meant to, feed into that particular aspect of governance. And as far as I was concerned, I thought that it was a good thing that was done, and the atmosphere was okay. People had the opportunity to ask questions. Answers came in whatever form, and I think that it was a good thing.
Okay, and you have expertise in public relations. Do you think that his machinery, communications machinery, is doing a good job?
Well, it would not be possible for me to judge, but as far as I'm concerned, continuous communication is the best thing for, or if you like,
are they doing that effectively? Are they communicating?
Well, they are communicating, except that you would not have 100%, that kind of happiness that people want to see when it comes to communication. Sometimes you find that the kind of communication that is coming does not satisfy what the citizens want. But I think that as they move along, they will be able to maybe improve on that. And as far as we in public relations are concerned, we think that people in communication should continue to update their knowledge and understand how to, be between the government and the citizens, and be able to also understand exactly what the citizens want to, the kind of information they want, and also try and be abreast with exactly the kinds of policies that are taking place and how they meet the expectations of the citizens. And by doing so, you will be able to carry the citizens along. Yeah.
Okay, let me come to you, Alhaji, because you're a media person. You've been practicing for God knows how long. Were you expecting more challenging questions than you heard yesterday from some of your colleagues and even those younger than you are?
Certainly, one would have expected more probing questions, but I think that there was a problem with the arrangement for the program yesterday. Normally, programs like this, media should be alerted at least 1 week, in advance, so that they can begin to prepare to sample people's opinions and so on. But I think this information came less than 24 hours before the function.
Yeah.
So you could even see that a lot of the senior practitioners were not present there, and those who were present also had to, rush their questions. I don't know why people are thinking that yesterday's questions were not hard enough, but it looks as if we always want the embarrassing questions, then we call them hard questions. But I believe that the questions that were put forward yesterday were equally important. It cuts across all governance, especially the issue of corruption and energy. I think it came out forcefully. You will see that the president...
Did the president answer that question to your satisfaction, especially on corruption?
Before, in fact, something happened yesterday, and it was in my mind. Yeah, yesterday I was called by some radio stations in the Western region, Ashanti region. And one of the presentations I made was exactly what he tried to put forward. So I was wondering whether he was monitoring me or he listened to me. You see, we have a problem anytime we talk about corruption. People have forgotten that we are in a democracy. In the democracy, everybody's right must be upheld. It's very, very important. We try to construe the current processes to the military regime that this country found itself some time back. The mere fact that somebody has been indicted doesn't make the person guilty. That is why in democracy, the cardinal principle is the rule of law. So that you need to investigate, you need to prosecute, and the person needs to be pronounced guilty before. But as soon as they mention
once you're indicted in a report, then it's assumed that you're corrupt.
But we have seen several reports that came out that were thrown out in the court eventually. So people were expecting that once people's names were mentioned, and when you look at some of the reports, we had the opportunity to do some stories on one of the corruption issues, which is the JIDA issue. We said we made it plain that it would be difficult to prosecute, because what the committee that investigated the JIDA did was to look at the institutional challenges, the failures, rather than the criminality. So right now the whole process is being reinvestigated, but this is unknown to many Ghanaians, so they don't understand why they said people have chopped money and yet
they're still in office.
But then, it's still in office and nothing is happening. But I can tell you that a lot of things is going on. The IOCO, the CID, all of them are working on it to make sure that when they present their matter before the courts, they can get their day there. Because when you rush to send public servants there with the hope that you can get secure prosecution, you may end up freeing them. And we've seen a lot under this administration in particular. Since 2009 to date, no politician has been found wanting in any court in the country because of the rush to please the citizens, the rush to please people. Hey, we rush for the court.
And then
as far as we are concerned, no, there's nothing like that. And we all know what became of that famous Ghana at 50 case, where we had to rush people to court and they were left off the hook. We even had the case of the Yana Medan. So you see, so sometimes we all need to, especially the media, we need to, like he said, we need to continue to refresh ourselves, so that at least we will then be able to impart that information to our listeners, viewers, and so on. Most often you see that the media are most guilty of this. When you know that we are under a rule of law, and then there are rules and procedures that the mere
wouldn't it boil down to the issue of training? Because now you go to media houses, people haven't been trained formally, but they are there as journalists. They don't know what the ethics say about journalism. They don't know the do's and don'ts of, for instance, you talked about rule of law. They don't even appreciate what the rule of law is. So you can't, blame them entirely. It's the media owners as well.
Training could be one that you cannot divorce training for it. Yeah. Secondly, finance is also a challenge. The media houses themselves, if they don't have the resources, how can they fund the training of their personnel? Yeah. And then the third aspect, which is very, very dangerous for this country, the media is becoming partisan. So that depending on who is in the saddle, you can see where the person's questions are going to. Yesterday, I had to speak to one host of a radio. I said, please let us try to elevate some of our discourses. You call me, you are asking about this issue, when you know that the mere fact that somebody's name came up doesn't make the person guilty, but you are now feeding your audience to believe that there was massive corruption. I think that we are doing a disservice to ourselves. Let us try to respect the rule of law. It is very important. Today, maybe you are the opposing end, so you can point your finger at it, but tomorrow it will be your turn. Yeah. And at times we see how allegations are made against journalists, and we see how furious they become. So that we should also respect the right of every citizen, not only you, the journalist.
Okay, he makes a very valid point here about training, and how the media itself has been muddying the water. Sometimes it's not such a big deal, but we want to color it and exaggerate. You're a registrar of GIJ. Is this a concern to you?
Yeah, it is. You see, as far as I know, reporting is about providing information as it is, without you adding too many adjectives or probably coloring the information. It is about putting out what it is. For instance, I come to see you sitting here. What did I see? I saw you sitting down. I should not assume that because I saw you sitting down quietly, you were hungry. You understand? The judgment should be left with the people who would read or listen to you. Now, the other thing is, you see, when you come to public relations, practitioners go through examinations and periodic professional development, and it is to help shape the people properly to be able to provide the kind of service they should. I don't know how far that is done when it comes to journalism. And then he mentioned a situation where the media houses have constraints as far as finances are concerned. I don't think it is an excuse. Once you have decided to go into a trade, you should be able to provide all the necessary requirements to be able to make the people within the organization or institution properly functional, so that people will not point accusing fingers at you and your employees. Because you see, what the employees are made of is what makes the organization. For instance, your attitude and behavior is what people observe over a period of time and assign opinions to them. And those opinions are assigned to the organization in which you operate. And therefore, the owners of the media houses should have an understanding of that and be able to put in place mechanisms that can help them at least provide little training that will not cost much, so that you can bring your people up to the standard, so that people will not complain. I have always had the problem of talking about these things. I wouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, I also teach. I teach public relations at GIJ as a part-time lecturer. And you have many journalists now coming to do public relations, probably because they want to move out. And I've had the occasion to point out some of these things to them, and the fact that if you decide you want to practice, you don't just practice for practicing's sake. You should be interested in living up to expectations, so that when people are pointing fingers at you, they are pointing fingers at you for the fact that you have been able to make it, rather than people accusing you of bias and so on and so forth. Journalism is a profession, and it should be upheld. And I think that GGA and whoever are
NMC.
In fact, unfortunately, again, I don't want to say fortunately, I'm a member of the NMC. And I think that it has been a concern, and it's been discussed over and over. And I think that GGA should take up the mantle and begin to organize professional development programs, sometimes for free, and in some cases maybe for minimal amounts of money, so that people can benefit. And it will be a classroom. Yes, it's you would have gone to the classroom, done all kinds of things, but when you come out, the challenges are different, and therefore you require an update. You require experiences from other people to be able to shape up your own experiences, to be able to match up with what is happening. We have people who are making a trade a joke. I don't know whether I'm right, but I think that is the case. We should stand up and
Do you
help
agree
people.
that some are making the trade a joke?
Well, it is true, but then I think that he is also underestimating the magnitude of or the causes of that. You know, it is true what he's saying. I agree with him to some extent, but you see, the reality is different from the theoretical aspect which he is dealing with. You have a media house that, due to finance constraint, is not able to attract the caliber or the right staff, and even the quantity. You know, you have the same person being the host, being the producer, being this and that. Because why? There are no adverts, there are no finances. You understand? So the person, even if you want to send that person or to even sponsor that person for a refresher course, who is standing for that person? So these are some of the financial constraints facing media houses. We don't have support.
Then not to cut him, then it means that media house is not ready to operate. You must have somebody to stand in once you want quality.
The point he's making is that if the media house is not generating enough income.
I'm trying to say they are not the media houses in Ghana are not generating enough. The media houses in Ghana, if we look at the overhead expenses of all media houses in Ghana, except maybe the state ones, they are not attracting the kind of resources that, because if you look at TV3, for example, the potentials for this television station to go places is there. But why? It's because of a lack of support from state. I think that being the fourth estate of the realm, the state should be able to give some minimum support to media houses so that it will help this up and coming one, the small ones also, to grow their personnel. You see, but if you just think that if you don't have it, don't start, I think that will be a big challenge to the industry. That will be a big challenge.
Okay. Now, Alhaji, let's look at the event itself. 2 hours. I mean, I've had some journalists complain that 2 hours definitely not enough to assess the president for being in office for a year or over. Mm-hmm. Would you have expected maybe 3 hours, 4 hours?
No,
which that would have been very liberous.
Even the 2 hours, I realized that by the last quarter, a lot of journalists were getting fed up with the show. I think that 2 hours is more than enough. You see, the whole thing boils down to planning.
Was it planned properly?
No, this particular one was not planned. Even though it came out as one of the best that we've been attending over the years, because this was indoors, especially, so it gave it some aura, But I think that it was hurriedly planned, and that comes back to the question that you asked him whether the communication team of the president are up to scratch. I think that they are not. I think that there are challenges there, because I'm surprised that you knew 1 year on that you will be holding this event. And as at Sunday, I knew that as far as I know, they were not planned. They had not planned for it. It was just Monday. You called me journalists to come and meet you Tuesday, and that also accounted for that. And I was also not happy when they allowed the president to stand for 2 hours taking the questions. I think that it was not good for his health, even though he's a young man. But then the stress attached to that office, we shouldn't subject the president to that kind of stress. Especially, they could have been moving around instead of.
They should have been innovative.
They should have been innovative, at least with some microphone on him, could be walking with him the aisles and so on, giving the answer, rather than standing at one particular place. And you could see that it was telling on the president in the last moment, last 30 minutes, you could see that the whole fatigue was beginning to show on the president. I think that it was not good. And I would have loved that, for example, the president would have allowed 1 or 2 ministers to make some interventions, so that would have also have enabled him even to take a rest and re-energize himself to come back and play. It is dangerous. What they did yesterday, I think it's very dangerous, because if we are not very careful, one day we can have a problem on our hand, because even those of us who were sitting down, the media person will tell you, because it was a live show and because of the ambience of the situation, we're all stiff in our chairs. We couldn't stretch up, we couldn't stretch the legs, we couldn't do it. And by the end of the 2 hours, you were feeling it, even though we were sitting down. And just imagine the whole chief executive of the state standing and also at one place. I think that it was not the best. It was not the best.
Okay, you agree?
Well, I would say that
for PR,
an event of that nature, for effectiveness, requires a lot of planning. I don't know what kind of planning went into it, and if you plan very well, you could avoid some of these things. But I think that this is a learning point at which they might review what has taken place, and probably all these little things that he has pointed out will be taken care of. And I think that if they do a good review, they should be able to do a better job next year.
Hopefully they will.
Yeah, yes, I'm sure they will review, and I'm sure they would come out with a better, yes. And I think that, but it's a good start, and I think that they have done well. But
okay. Before I wrap up, let me take you through this process. Alhaji Fature, rate the president's performance yesterday on a scale of 0 to 10.
See, if you want to do the ratings and you don't take certain things into factors, you will be unfair to the president and his administration. if you look at the challenges that confronted the infant administration in that 1 year period, the issue of energy, the issue of fires, and then
all
the most
corruption
important
scandals that came up.
Not the scandal, but I'm talking about issues that the government didn't have control over. And the most important one was the election petition, the challenge. You know, we have all forgotten last year by this time. Nobody could have predicted where Ghana would be in the next few weeks and months. But today, suddenly, we have forgotten about it. Now, for the mere fact that the president has been able to steer this nation throughout this turbulent 1 year for us to arrive here, I think that should be the biggest plus. Because if we had not handled the election petition issue critically, this country could have gone under.
And while doing that, we need to give credit to your position as well.
It is not only the opposition, but to the people of Ghana.
People.
You understand? But then, the buck stops with the number one person. One reckless move, one reckless interference could have plunged this country into anything. The president and his administration allow due process to take place. They allow the institutions of state, particularly the police, to carry out their functions without fear or favor. And this has largely contributed to the relative peace that we are enjoying today, which for me, I think is the biggest plus of this administration. Okay.
So you're not giving him a clean bill of health, but
I can give a mark. If you look at the way the president and his administration has been able to handle this energy crisis, which in my opinion has been solved for once and for all.
Has it?
Yes, I think so. I think so, because now we have excess energy, and looking at what has been
people are complaining.
Of course, these are they will still be there. The challenges will be there, but we're talking about a threat to the whole national system. Right now, we are out of those stress for good.
Okay.
You understand?
So can you rate him now?
Well, I think that over 10 over. Listen, I'll give him 6 over 10.
6 over 10. That's above average.
It is.
Yeah, it is above average. Okay, Perry.
Yes. Are you asking me to rate him in respect of the event, or in respect
his
of
first year in office?
His first year in office. Okay, I would say that having looked at all what has happened and what is still happening, I think that the president has done well. I have a difficulty in providing a figure. But I would say
you hover around 5, 6.
No, he's done very well, because if you look at many of the things that took place and are taking place, and the circumstances under which he came to become even a president, having lost his president as a vice president, and having to come in within a short period to campaign, win, be confronted with
a petition,
and all kinds of things. You know, I think that he's been able to compose himself well. He has been able to look at all. And then if you look at what he did yesterday, the fact that he had a hands on all the activities that happened within all the various sectors, he was able to address the questions. What it means is that he understands what is happening in this country. He has a hold on it. And I think given the second year, he should be moving very fast, and I think that he's done very well. I will use the word very well.
Very well.
Yes.
Very well. On that scale, should be around 7, 8.
Fine.
I guess. All right. I have to say a big thank you to you, Alhaji Bature Idris. It's such a pleasure seeing you this morning. He's the managing editor of the Al-Hajj newspaper, and also Perry Owusu, vice president. Perry Owusu, I'm sorry, vice president of the IPR and registrar of the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Okay, so Alhaji Bature gave the president 6 over 10. He says very well. We also want to know, on a scale of 0 to 10, we want you to rate the president's performance in the first year in office. We'll read all your messages at the end of the show. We're taking a breather now. We'll be back.